Welcome on in, action figure lovers. This is Spruce and Studs, and today we are going to be taking a very close look at the spiritual battle brothers in every single Space Marine chapter. What am I talking about? Well, as the title already states, we are going to be taking an in-depth look at the Ultramarines Chaplain with Terminator armor. And with that being said, you're not here to listen to a random person on the internet keep talking. We're going to get into the review.
I have so many of these damn brick separators. Let's see if this works to rip this thing off. Kind of. Alright, Terminator Chaplain, let's see what you got. Unveiling the Terminator. Alright, folks, I'm going to address this pauldron over here straight off the bat. When I lifted this Chaplain out of the plastic covering, this thing actually popped out. So this was actually supposed to be glued right here. Obviously the glue wasn't secure enough to put this pauldron in place, so it popped off. And I'll have to admit to you, as of late, we've been having a little bit of QC issues with these kinds of things because the Blood Angels Terminator, their pauldron actually popped off as well. I forgot to include that, so this, unfortunately, did pop off, but thankfully, the fix is still very easy. So anyways, with that being said, let's get to this ornate action figure, shall we? And there is really a lot to cover because there is, well, a ton of iconography on this Chaplain, which is really badass. So we're going to do, as usual, the top-down look here. There almost seems like to be like a hooded area right here, which kind of makes sense because, well, it's a Chaplain. But with that being said, let's take a look at the face area or the helmeted area. And it is of a very imposing skull. I mean, I'll be honest with you, this looks certifiably creepy and badass at the same time. So within these recesses, there is extensive shading, especially up here and then where the eyes are at. And then obviously where the teeth are as well. So in my opinion, JoyToy did a fantastic job with the skull area. On the sides of it are some lenses over here that are blue. Unfortunately, they are not translucent blue. They seem like they have been covered with a regular blue color. And then we are now going to move on to the pauldrons. So we're going to take a look at the pauldron that fell off here. And this is, once again, a very ornate pauldron. You have a very prominent skull that's glaring back at us right here. And I'll have to say that this is probably one of the best done skulls that I've seen before in a JoyToy action figure. And then there is a wreath over here that surrounds the skull. And within the leaves of the wreath, there is a little bit of shading that's going on. So we're going to look at the other side. The Crux Terminatus is on this side. And I'll have to say that there is still extensive shading that goes around the outside of the skull, and you get to see this characteristic wreath as well. And now we will look at the middle of this action figure, and this middle portion is completely festooned and draped with all these skull ribbons. Is probably the only thing that I could possibly say this is the closest explanation of what's going on. So you have a gold halo up here that has been shaded down here. And then there is a string of 3 skulls. And these skulls are heavily weathered, as you can see. So you can see that there's shading that's involved here. On the other side, everything is pretty much almost completely the same, minus a few little bit of patterns here. But there's actually a real purity seal that's hanging down on this side. So there is quite a lot to absorb and take in with this action figure right here in terms of these skull ribbons. So you can actually move this a little bit out of the way, and I believe you could probably just detach it, but I'm not going to. So underneath these skull ribbons, there are 2 purity seals flanking the middle of this area. And then with the belt area on this action figure, guess what? There are more skulls! 3 of them, in fact. So once again, skulls have been heavily weathered. Now down here there are pendants, and it is of the same gold winged skull right here. And then moving on, let's see if there's anything that's going on with the I guess, armor plates on the side. It appears to be completely blank with nothing. Same thing with this side, and on the back, yep, there are armor plates that are not adorned with anything, unlike the Blood Angels one for reference. Now let's move on to the bottom area of this Terminator armor. You can see that the shin and the knee area has a gold color, and for some odd reason, the rest of this thing is of a silver color. I think this is a little bit strange in my opinion, where I think that this should have been gold. Then we're going to take a look at the cape. First, we're going to take a look at the inner cloak portion here, and you can see this nice inner blue embroidery that's going on all around the cape on the outside. There is a perfectly printed blue skull at the bottom of it. And as we are going to flip this thing around, we're going to take a look at what's going on with the back. And you have a gorgeous looking cape here. And this cape actually does rival some of the Black Templar's cape in terms of how fluid and how nicely this has been shaded here. Look at the beautiful shading in these recesses. And then with the raised parts, it is obviously a lighter red. And up here are two skulls on each side of the cape that's connected by cords that are shaded. And on this particular skull, there are two pendants that are hanging down. So we're going to put the main body of this Terminator Chaplain down, and we're going to now look at the Crozius Arcanum. And the Crozius is a literal beat stick, and I think it is really cool looking. So you have a gigantic winged skull that seems to be pervading throughout the whole entire motif of this action figure. If you flip around the other side, you get to see that this skull has, guess what? More skulls dangling down. And the final thing that we're going to be taking a look at is this Stormbolter. Now, straight off the bat, I'll have to say that this Stormbolter is completely different from what I've seen before. I don't remember seeing a gigantic drum for a magazine here. Anyways, the casing of this Stormbolter is red, and then the rest of the areas is of a gunmetal color, and looks like there is some sort of shading that's going on in the recesses. Now, let's take a look at the articulation here. Starting off with the head area, I'm sure that you can actually flip this thing around 360 degrees, but it will actually take you to take tweezers and basically manipulate this whole thing around. So this hood really does block off the mobility of this Terminator. And then the other thing that actually blocks off the mobility is, I'll be honest with you, this pauldron right here. So this pauldron is actually constructed differently from the Blood Angels Terminator pauldron. The Blood Angels Terminator pauldron almost mimics that of the JoyToy 2.0 figures, where it kind of like sticks up here and then kind of follows the motion of the whole entire joint. But unfortunately, this is not the case with this particular Terminator. It is literally a solid piece that you stick over here and really does inhibit a lot of the motion on this action figure. Obviously, with this thing around, you can get 360 degrees of rotation, but the problem is with this thing around, you get no rotation whatsoever. So this is pretty much the maximum movement that you can get forward about the shoulder region, and then out back, it is blocked by this hose as well as this pauldron right here. And then with the legs, you can actually kick this thing out back probably 90 degrees, but unfortunately the cape kind of blocks things. So the maximum degree of motion that you can do is kick it out 90 degrees, like I said right here. So now that we have taken a close look at this Terminator Chaplain, I will now let you know what I think about it and my final thoughts.
So what are my thoughts on this action figure? Well, I'll be honest with you, in terms of decoration, I think this action figure is literally second to none. There is a lot of stuff that's going on literally all over the place on this action figure, and especially if you love skulls, you're not going to be disappointed with this Chaplain. I mean, this thing is literally adorned with skulls all over the place, so I think that you will like it. In terms of just like Warhammer 40K iconography with all the different ribbons and once again the skulls, the wreaths, it's just pretty much, like I said, second to none. However, my biggest criticism on this action figure is that in terms of the action in this action figure, it is completely lacking. I find that this action figure literally has the most restrictive movement, mainly because of the pauldrons as well as the cape. As I mentioned before, the pauldrons are very, very restricting with regards to movement in the arms. I kind of wish that they used the Blood Angels Terminator's pauldrons, whereas actually attached to the shoulder joint, rather than to have this separate piece kind of attached to the body of it. So that's one thing that's restricting the movement. And the final thing is actually the cape. Although it is very glorious looking, it also blocks the movement of the legs as well. But anyways, do I recommend getting this action figure? Well, overall, yes, I do. Like I said, there is a lot of adornments, a lot of decoration that you can't find on any other Warhammer 40K action figure. So once again, this is Brews and Studs. Thanks for tuning in so religiously, just like the chaplain. Every single week, I appreciate, once again, your support and the comments that you leave in the comment section. And if these in-depth review videos are your thing, you know what to do, which is smash that subscribe button, just like you smashed Froze with the Crozius. But anyways, with that being said, I will see you all in the next one.